Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of the I'll Try That podcast. I am your host or co-host this week. It's Barbs with Drabers. Say hello, Drabers.
How are we doing all?
Interestingly, no Joe this week, and I don't think we've done a Barbs and Drabers episode for a while.
No.
So we're going to go absolutely mental and wreck the joint, aren't we?
Yeah. Basically, we're going to do all the things that Joe doesn't normally let us do.
There'll be swearing, violence, gratuitous nudity.
Yeah. all of my favourite things.
Yeah, while Dad's away, basically.
Yeah, while Dad's away, the kids will play.
Well, we'll try and at least go through like a few minutes of serious before it completely degenerates. Our pursuit of hoppiness this week, we're kind of reading a love letter to the Citra hop. The beer, appropriately enough, is called Citra. The brewery is Oakham from Peterborough in the UK. We'll get onto them a little bit more detail later on.
Yeah.
But we're going to also do a bit of a sprawling, scrambling, rambling hop topic to start off with. The first matter I think that needs addressing is Drabs' recent performance in a chili eating contest.
Well,
so over to you, Reg.
Well, yeah. Not that I'm blowing my own trumpet, but I've been.
I bet you were. After
I've been messaging and sending pictures and basically telling everybody of possibly one of the greatest achievements in my life was coming fourth place in a hottest chili eating competition.
Heroism, definitely.
It is I sent the boys some of the pictures of me in various stages of sweating, regretting life choices. But predominantly coming fourth, which was a out of 15, which I was
15. I think that's admirable. And also, you now have a new answer to the question: what's the hottest thing you've ever eaten?
A Carolina Reaper.
Carolina Reaper.
Yeah, it was.
That does sound brutal.
I can't even remember what it was on the Scoville scale, which is how hot things are. But I think the way we can possibly turn this into a hot topic was it was beer that made me do it.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah, it was. I'd maybe had a few, and they basically went, "We need one more person to enter this competition because somebody's not doing it." And in my head, I was like, "Of course, it's got to be me." So I kind of stood up with both my hands in the air and just kind of pointed at myself. And the kind lady was like, "Okay."
A couple of things on that. I quite like the idea that they clearly went 14. It can't go ahead with 14. It's got to be 15.
It's got.
So the fact that you were, had the cojones, which I think is possibly a really spicy chili as well, to jump on and say, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." I've completely forgotten what the other point I was going to say was. Well, just that having gone in and then gotten fourth. And I imagine that they must. The suggestion from what you're saying is they were pre-prepared with the other 14. So it's almost like it was the true underdog story in the world of the chili eating competition.
Chili eating competition. I just came out. I like to think in my head the crowd parted as I walked forwards. That's what I like to think. The crowd parted and somehow all knew my name. And we're just chanting it. That's the image I had. But it's probably more likely I stumbled up onto the stage, and everyone was like, "Who's this guy? He's clearly had too many beers."
It's got a real Rocky vibe, actually.
Yes.
I've got the idea of like a young lady saying, "Don't do it, Rich. You might get hurt." Like, "I've got to do it, sweetheart." And some old man said, "You ain't got what it takes, Drabwell."
That's it. But what I really enjoy is I've got to give a shout out to my mate Nathan, who was standing right there, right in front of me at the barrier, screaming and cheering me on, which I think gave me the motivation to continue.
I think that's definitely taken you probably from like 7th to 4th.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I wanted to give up when I ate the first one.
Yeah. So just run us through what some of the chilies that were in there. You mentioned the Carolina Reaper. That was the end for you. Did you
that was the end. So that was the hottest one. Barber, if I could tell you any more of the chilies, I would. Yes.
Because I know, so I'm not too up on these, but I imagine stuff like, I'm guessing down at the bottom end, they had like the jalapeno, and then what's the one they used to have on Old Man versus Food? Habanero.
Habanero, yeah. Well, I think it started off at 15,000 Scovilles. That's what I know, and went up to, it was something like 500,000 or something.
Okay.
was the limit, and then some of them were some of them were big, some of them were small. It was quite painful.
I always associate like a lot of the smaller ones being really brutal.
Yeah, I remember there was one that you had to eat two, and then they reacted with each other to make it hot, which I thought was crap. Yeah, that was like that was.
So the idea that like, each of them on their own, you could just like wolf down.
Yeah.
But then if you, blimey, I mean that does sound like a recipe for disaster.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I recently tried. I had a friend at work who'd been given as a birthday gift like a selection of kind of like beer and pub snacks.
Yeah.
And some of them were quite, well, I think it was, the whole thing was quite like pork scratching heavy. And he recently gave me one of his ghost chili or ghost pepper pork scratchings. And that was kind of just like, I mean, probably not to the same extent of what you were doing, but it was kind of just like a different kind.
Yeah.
Spicy, basically. So, blimey. Well, you have my admiration.
Yeah.
I love the just amateur throwing your name in the hat and coming out with fourth. That's decent.
Well, that's it. Well, this is how I want all Olympic events to start, with just one wild card, just thrown into the mix.
Someone who was there on the day and had a few beers and quite fancied having a go.
Yeah, it is Clive.
So in a slight bit of alternate news, and don't let on to the listeners that I told you this before we came on here, but guess what I'm a member of now?
Is it beer related?
Of course it is.
I like to think it's possibly beer heavy club.
Yeah.
Is it?
You're so hot. You're like you're in a chili eating competition.
Yeah. Is it predominantly men in their late 50s to 80s, the main members?
Quite possibly.
I think
there's a stark lack of beard on my part.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go camera. Have you joined camera?
Nailed it. Yeah. I mean, of course, I would say that I was the most likely member of the group, despite the lack of beard, to go camera.
Oh, 100%.
This was actually my birthday present this year.
Oh.
And anyone who doesn't know camera, just a bit of background, they've been around since 1971, and camera is the campaign for real ale. They are big into supporting real ale and pubs and beer festivals all in the UK. So I'm very luckily in the possession of a shed load of 50p off a pint vouchers. I get discounted or free entry to camera beer festivals that go on throughout the
Excellent.
UK. I was planning to go to my local one, which I've been to a few years before, but actually absolutely hammered it down with rain, and I had some guests surprisingly turn up on the day, so I couldn't go. But a very interesting organisation. They put you in touch with actually a friend of mine through work. Her husband was on the panel at the recent Cheltenham festival, and so they had 10 beers. There were 10 judges, and each of them had a category. And I think his was the premium bitter category.
Okay. Yeah.
And then so they all had to pick one from each category, and then the whole panel tasted the 10 at the end to get the beer of the festival.
Yeah.
And so I would have thought you guys would all assume it anyway, but basically really strong, really strong, not in ABV, but in just, the quality of the beer is really, really good. And it's also just these festivals are a good day out for any beer lovers, basically.
Oh.
So I'm now a member of Camera. So I'm gonna it's just gonna be a little bit of a hoity-toity approach from my review of any beers going on. But the other thing I wanted to mention as our kind of third bit of Hot Topic this week was again, this is actually news that broke in the last couple of days, but we expect this episode will be coming out to everyone about a sort of a week out of date. But there was an interesting case this week. I don't know who saw this, but there was news of Rishi Sunak doing a new adjusting basically the duty on alcohol.
Yeah.
Supposedly with a view to giving a boost to pubs and the beer trade. But so it's actually basically they're going to lower the duty on lower ABV drinks, which beer in comparison to spirits and that sort of thing. But Rishi Sunak then went to the Great British Beer Festival in central London and got heckled by a publican for saying that actually this is pretty rubbish, because ultimately the duty on across the board is going up.
Well, isn't it as well? He also got heckled for the way he was pouring a pint. I think there's a series of images of people just getting really annoyed at how poorly he pours a pint, which in all honesty does not surprise me because he's probably never worked behind a bar in his life.
I also think he's teetotal, isn't he, actually?
Oh, is he?
Yeah. I don't think he drinks at all. I was going to say, it doesn't surprise me because wasn't there a thing about him not knowing how to use a contactless payment card or something as well? So he's not. He's
not doing that. Wasn't it? He messed up fueling a car, or was that another?
I think that might have been the same thing.
Was that been the same thing? Yeah,
he was filling up a car, but it wasn't his car.
Yeah,
because it was like, no, I have a normal, I have a common person car like this one. And then the owner of the car turned up.
Sorry.
But the other thing was, and sorry, I know we're not a political podcast, but it was quite funny. I think he announced on Twitter something about this is the great new thing we could do with beer duty. And then I quite like that Twitter has this function, or for the eagle-eyed viewers, it's maybe now X. But it has a thing where it can go, people can actually say that's not true. So actually, if you then went and viewed it after a certain amount of time, it's because I think the point was, we couldn't change the duty on beer while we were in the EU. And then it goes, there's a little thing at the bottom that says context is actually, yes, that was completely possible. So I suppose it's a bit of a fib.
That's just politics.
Yeah, well, there you go. And we steer clear of that, although it just so happened that it overlapped with beer, so we thought we'd have a bit of a natter about that. But we'll close the file on that for now, because that's quite an indulgent session of a hot topic. And we will turn our attention to Oakham Brewery, and particularly Citra. Now, Drabs, I had mentioned in the lead up to this episode to you guys, this was a beer I was aware of already. Yeah. I think, is this are you fairly a new introductee to this beer? So
I remember drinking this beer a long time ago, but the only reason I remember drinking it is because of the logo on the bottle. And I'm pretty sure it used to be in the Tesco's or Asda buy 3 for £5 or something like that. And I just picked it up. That's the only reason I remember having it, but I don't remember the taste. So it is kind of, you know, when you go away from something and then come back to it again and you kind of like, oh, yeah, all right then. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with it. And yeah, it's nice. It definitely has to be chilled. You have to drink it cold. I don't think I could drink.
I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah.
No. So, I mean, I'm going to, we're able to respectfully disagree. I'm not actually disagreeing. I'm actually just going to ramp up your analysis. I think it's flipping I didn't swear, Joe. You enjoy that?
Yeah.
I think it's flipping wonderful, this. You mentioned the logo, actually. A really quite distinctive look, isn't it? It's like a hop with a face.
Yeah,
kind of like a little cheeky character.
It's quite an intense logo. Like, I wouldn't want to see that guy out and about.
So yeah, it is a very distinctive sort of look. But I think the really sort of standout bit is the taste of what's in the glass and the bottle. This is we can get this in the supermarkets now. It's actually on tap at a pub near me, and actually I think it has a bit of an edge if you have it draft as well. But this one in particular,
that's a really nice way to. I like that. It's got a bit of an edge. I like that.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
So there was. I was also going to run through a little bit of the history. So Oakham Ales are about 30 years old. They started in 1993 with their first sort of commercially brewed beer. And actually, if we go and look into them a little bit more, there's a lot more detail and sort of what they've been through over the years. If you also go and have a look on there, there's have a look into them. There's so many beers that they do. I mean, they definitely hit your craft craft brewer credentials. There's the core beers. They do seasonal and all this sort of thing. But I think the one that we're drinking at the moment, Citra, is kind of like being the springboard for them in a big way. So it was their head brewer, John Bryan, went out to the US and discovered this. And the thing is, I maybe hadn't quite appreciated that prior to this, we wouldn't have known them so much. But you probably see quite a few beers about these days that boast having the Citra hop. but it was on their 2009 trip to the US where they discovered rather, the Citra hop. And then they went, right, we're going back to the UK and we are making a pure Citra hop beer. They didn't necessarily say that they're the first to ever bring a citrusy, hoppy kind of beer to the UK, but they were the first to do a pure Citra hop beer. And that is the product that we're trying right now. And I do think, I mean, they sum it up as being this, uniquely refreshing, fruity, citrusy beer. And I wouldn't fault a word of that. It's so refreshing. I could just go through bottles and bottles of this stuff.
Oh no, yeah, I completely agree. What I really like is I quite like it has a bit of a sharp taste. Like you said, it's got a bit of an edge to it. I quite like the sharpness coming through. And I'm not always too keen on that, but these guys seem to do it well. That it's not too much, but it's not too little. Which cuts through really nicely. But going along what you were saying, I'm just looking at some of the other stuff that they've got out on open. So it looks like they've got their Citra hop, but called the Green Devil. The Green Devil, which is their IPA, but it's cask aged IPA, which sounds
a bit stronger, I think, as
well.
A
bit stronger, yeah.
It's
6%. Yeah, that's 6%, and it's twice world champion cask beer at the Prestige International Brewing Awards, which is pretty good. I got it twice. Like, they've gone, all the others are rubbish. This one's pretty good. We'll have it again.
Yeah, fair play. And actually, the other ones I'd spotted as well. So the other ones that people might recognise as much. Again, for me, it's the Citra is the one that I sort of seem to recognise everywhere. But they do, it's called JHB. I think they're bitter, which is just nice, solid, reliable 3.8, so a little bit more sessionable and that sort of thing. I'm curious to try, as I've never had Inferno. That's their blonde ale. That to me, Inferno speaks of something that's going to be, really quite robust and maybe strong. But it's a 4%. Clean, fresh, hoppy, as they describe it.
I'm also just thinking the name Inferno doesn't lend itself to a blonde ale. The name wise,
so personally,
and that Inferno would go well for my chili beer sort of name. But
yes, I've just realised you were building up just like a case about you and heat. But yeah, I unless it did have a chili kick, I personally wouldn't lean towards an Inferno. But it's served them so well that it's part of their core beers that they sort of always do. And Bishop's Farewell is a gold that they do, which that sounds like a beer to me.
That does sound like a beer. That sounds something like Canberra would enjoy.
It has, isn't it? I would like to find out exactly what the story is behind that. But so they're quite.
Wait there! I can tell you the story behind the Bishop's Farewell.
Sounds very euphemistic.
Is it?
Go on.
First brewed in 1996 in honour of William John Bishop Bill Westwood in his retirement as the Bishop of Peterborough. Bishop's Farewell has pioneered the use of the USD sourced Cascade hop, the variety that launched the craft beer revolution.
Ah, excellent. There you go. That's a very good story, and not quite as outrageous as I was maybe suggesting. They had a recent development. I think they also appointed a gentleman by the name of Mark Tetlow as their head brewer in 2022. But that was following the retirement of John Bryan, who was the head brewer with them was with them for 27 years, and as previous head brewer, who I think by most accounts was kind of the contributor or the leading light behind the inception of the Citra beer. But to be honest, I would just say, look, if anyone hasn't had this, and actually I think there have been quite a few pale imitations in the past.
Yeah,
I've seen a few beers go, we call this Citra. This is our Citra beer. Kind of started with this one, and I just think it's just eminently drinkable. I like it. I think you said also, chilled once it's been in the fridge, really, really helps. But a really, really lovely. Looks also like it's a ale-y kind of beer, but it has this sort of craft roll, I would say.
Yeah,
as a session IPA.
That's it. It definitely feels like it could cross boundaries, borders. So it could between the people who enjoy a traditional ale and other things I think would enjoy it. And I definitely think it appeals to the craftier people out there.
Yeah.
Which I think is really nice.
For that reason, a resounding thumbs up from me. We should do numbers.
You know what?
Joe normally does numbers.
He does, but I'm also ahead of the game and have got the numbers.
We don't need him anymore.
We could literally just sack Joe off and just do our own podcast. I'll try that better.
Joe, if you're listening, we don't mean it.
No, we love you. We do. Joe does so much to this podcast. We've got to give him kudos to that.
Yeah. Oh God, he sets up the Google Meet.
Yeah, that's harder than I thought.
That's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all he does.
It is tricky, that, to be fair. And I'm not going to go start talking seriously like we.
That we actually care for him.
Yeah. Anyway, do his second big job and
do his second big job. So, unfortunately, I can't access their Twitter because my computer won't allow me. But their Instagram, 3,537 followers. So not as many as I thought.
I'm going to get the Twitter up. We might have to do a little bit of again, not Twitter, X now.
X.
944 followers.
I 100% need to step up their internet game.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, again, because they do, they're like in their cores are a blonde, a bitter, and a golden ale. I think it's, although we say it's a bit of a genre spanner of the ale drinkers and the craft ale drinkers.
Yeah,
I think it probably, if anything, is weighted more towards the ale drinkers.
Yeah, definitely.
Who might be less prominent on social media. But either way,
there we go.
Cracking beer. I love it. And actually, the one thing I think we mentioned previously also, when we're going to get towards the end of the year, it's very hard, but like trying to pick, everyone's going to try and have a go at picking their favourite beers that we've talked about over the year. You have to go a long way to beat this one, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, that's big. That's big words.
Big talk. Big talk.
Big talk from a little man.
I was hoping for at least medium-sized man, but so be it. Anyway, right. Enjoy, folks, and tune in next time.
And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe, Rich,
Barber,
and Simo,
goodbye. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter,
I'll try that podcast.com,
and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.